Welcome back to another episode of This Week in Indies, where we'll sit down and discuss women in the publishing world. What do women publishers want? Do women approach things differently than their male counterpart? Have they opened new doors in the publishing world? Can they help bring in more equality? We'll discuss these questions and more as we sit down with an excellent group of authors at the round table. Then we'll hear from C.L. Cannon as she brings us a group of books similar to It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. And finally, chin up, tits out. The last 5 minutes we'll spend with author Miranda O as she shares with us a bit about her work, featuring Hadley, her main character. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee. Here's your host for This Week in Indies, Madeline Dale. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show of This Week in Indies. We've got a great group of authors here this morning to chat about a fantastic topic, and I'm very excited to have a full group of women to talk about this topic because we are all women in publishing. But before we get started, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe because we need those numbers and we would love to have you around more often. But before I pull them in, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on this week. We've got Thanksgiving week, but we still have our regular shows like Mean Reviews and Character Driven coming up this week. But here's our fantastic guest. Hey, guys!
Hi.
Hey!
So let's go around the round table and you guys can tell our viewers a little bit about you and what you write and where to find your books.
Oh, it's me. All right. Oh, hello. I'm an author, of course. I'm the author of Broken Chains, award-winning novel, also translated in 4 different languages. I am a podcaster with Behind the Pen. Listen to my podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple and Google and all that. And I'm really happy to be here with you, amazing ladies.
Yes.
Hey guys, C.O. Cannon, aka Courtney Cannon. I am the owner of Fiction Atlas Press. I do a lot of things here on GoIndie now, like the Indie Connection and the monthly marketing tip. Sometimes in between that, I get to write fantasy and sci-fi. We have a new anthology that just came out yesterday that's all about villains, and it's been really fun. I'm really excited to talk about women in publishing today.
Yes. Jade?
Hi guys, I'm J.E. Taylor, first name Jane, you can call me. I write fantasy, urban fantasy, romance. This is my latest. It's a nice, beautiful hardcover of the series that came out at the end of October. I had to think about that. I have a collection of like 60 some books. So there's probably something in there that you'd like. My latest ebook is Joy that came out this month. It's a Silent Night prequel. So if you like Christmas, check it out. That's it for me.
Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Parmley, and I write military romantic suspense and several other genres of romance. I have a brand new SEAL series out, starting with Finding Bryce. And I have a couple holiday stories out too, if you like holiday romance.
Sweet. And like I said, I'm super stoked that we're all like women on this group this morning on this panel. And a couple of people are with us in the chat. Karina posted it's ladies' night. Woohoo! Anita is here. Miss Alicia Bull's here. Joe is here. Which we did mention in here, Miranda is not going to be with us this morning. Sick one. It's a bunch of kiddos sick and she's sick. So, and AC's here. So guys, I know we have an article that I shared with you all about women in publishing. And if you're viewing this, guys, you can find it in the description below. But it was kind of a tough article to read through. I know, like, I struggled a little bit. But something that really stood out to me and I pulled out to be a kind of like our conversation starter was an article, What Do Women Publishers Want? Cindy Spiegel and Graw mentions that publishing is a form of activism. It's a chance to change the cultural conversation. With that being said, what does publishing a book mean to you?
I mean, for me, it was a lifelong dream. So the first book I published, I actually went through a small independent publisher at the time, that was more of a co-op than a publishing company, but I didn't know, I was young and stupid. But lifelong dream to do that. So to be able to put myself out there, put my stories out there has been fabulous.
It was a dream for me as well. And when I started out in a traditional house with agent, 7-year contract, advance, etc. And back then there were so many hurdles to put that one book out, that getting that first book out was a huge, huge deal. It felt tremendous. So the article encapsulates the entire period of when I started in 2007 to today. And there's a lot of things that kind of tapped me as I was reading, like, oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, I saw a hole in the marketplace, so I decided to write a book to fill it. Unfortunately, like many authors, I got burnt by Vanity Press. You learned from your lesson after that. Since then, I've got 14 books. I've self-published. I'm with a hybrid publisher, and I'm also contracted with another publisher.
I'm like Jane. I've always wanted to publish a book. I've always been a huge reader. I've been writing stories and making up things all my life, and being able to put that out there for other people to enjoy and give me feedback on is a really positive experience that I feel fortunate that I'm able to do. And self-publishing has been able to do so much more for me than I think any other industry, methods could have done. I think when I started my own publishing company, like Karina, it was because I started it to fill a need to have a more fair way for people to be published, and for it to be really about the story and not like someone's huge following or how much they can bring to the project other than their talent.
Do you ladies feel like there was a hurdle that shouldn't have existed if maybe you were a man? I know it's going to be a little controversial with this article.
Yeah, my first books were thrillers, and dark thrillers. Thus, I went with my initials because I thought I would get a better reception that way, because it was more the male-dominated genre at that time. So, yes, I don't know if Jane E. Taylor would have gotten as much as those original books got by my initials, because they didn't know initially that I was a woman.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't put my pictures out there. I didn't, I just said J.E. Taylor and put my covers out there for the longest time. Now I'm like, yeah.
You're right about thriller, because what you did, people would have probably thought straight away that you were a man, because the thriller genre is. I write thriller, so but the thriller genre is more male orientated. But that was a really good thing you did there with your initials. But you've kept your initials, though.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's my maiden name. I didn't make up any of it, so it's just like, okay, I just decided, maiden versus married, because it's easier to say.
I feel that. So.
Yes, and so many people get it wrong. But yeah, it is a huge thing to be published.
Yes, it is.
It's an honor.
And
Mhm.
Anita says, yeah, there's a reason many women authors use initials. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, for aliases too. So,
Mhm.
mm.
Exactly.
With romance, there really wasn't that so much because romance is very much for females. And there are some men who write in the romance genre and they use female names. So that's the reverse of, the same
That is
thing,
true. That is true.
which is kind of interesting. And I went on to write for 5 small presses, and
Mhm.
I was trying to think if I'd ever had a male editor, and I hadn't. So all of my editors have been, with the exception of one after I went indie and got rights back, have all been female. And looking back on those different companies, the publishers were the ones who were male. The editors were lots of female editors in the romance genre publishing, but the publishers, that the money guy, the big money guys were guys. So
You're just saying that now. It's made me think about every editor that I've had, every formatter I've had. I'm sorry, men, but they've all been female, and I never realised that now until you've just pointed that out.
yeah,
Is it that we just navigate towards female editors and formatters because we are female, or is it because there are more of them out there?
I think there are probably more of them out there. But I think, and this is going to be stereotypical, sorry.
It's hard not to with this topic, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, women are much more detail oriented than, than big picture oriented. In most cases, the guys are great with the technical know-how and things like that, but I'm not entirely sure they're as detail oriented as women. So, and I just walked myself around that twice. and my publishing partner, he's a guy. He's the one that came to me and said, let's start a publishing house. It's small. And
Yeah.
he does all the accounting, thankfully.
Yeah, it's too early to math. Courtney, do you have any thoughts?
Much like Deborah, I mostly write YA fantasy, so it is very mostly female writers that fill that void. But so I haven't really experienced much because I've always been self-published. I haven't really experienced much of the male-oriented thing about that. But I will say, being a service provider, there is a very different tone that people get with you when they think that you're a man versus a woman, and the way that they treat you and the tone they use, the words that they use, and just the overall way that they present themselves and talk to you. Because I've had clients who thought I was a man when they first started because of the initials. And so, very formal when they found out I was a woman, they asked if a woman that they asked if I was the secretary and things like that. So it can be very offensive. It can be very frustrating in that aspect as a service provider, or I'm sure other cover designers and anyone else in the industry has probably experienced that at some point working with a male in the industry. You kind of look down on, like you couldn't possibly know as much as them, and you're maybe a little bit slow to catch on what they're trying to talk about. They're just kind of a condescending tone that I have noticed several times.
That is a very good point, because I feel like that happens a lot. And going back to thinking about any of them I've worked with, I think the only men I've worked with have been like a PA and one cover designer that I used. So yeah, crazy. And do you guys think like maybe we do approach things differently? I mean, Courtney, you mentioned the wording like is used differently. Do you think that is part of like a difference in how we publish and are successful versus what they do?
I think we use a lot more of our emotions when it comes to publishing and making decisions. I think we can possibly be more empathetic to others and try to be more of a helping hand and try to handhold other people, which sometimes is good and sometimes it's kind of detrimental to ourselves. But we do have that quality about us where we are more community oriented and kind of try to help people along more so than men who will just say, go Google it, go figure it out yourself. And I'm not saying all men are like that, but there is a great majority of them. There are also wonderful people like Joe. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, Joe, don't hate us for getting on our soapboxes this morning. So. And I'm going to say the same to Adam if he's watching, because Adam does a lot of like things similar to Joe. Like
Yes.
they do a lot and help women a lot. So with their stuff. And that actually also kind of brings me to my next like question. Let me find my slide for it because I put this. I quoted the articles like. It is about doing whatever the fuck I want, whenever the fuck I want. You can't absolutely quote me on that. And she explains the damage was done when Penguin and Random House combined. There's a drive to conformity, and they're not doing the cool, interesting stuff. That just means more great books on the table for the rest of us to publish. And with that, I'm referring to, do you guys think like with the big five being more of like a male-controlled world, and them kind of like, what is the word I'm looking to for? Like, kind of like controlling the gate, like
Gatekeepers.
Yes, gatekeepers. They're keeping a lot of women's stuff from moving forward because we're women. Does that like, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? You feel like they're gatekeeping a lot of them?
So the quote comes from an editor or publisher at Source Books, which has been around for 35 years, and they publish some contemporary romances. Penguin Random House, the merger gave them 45%. So that was a big deal because, of course, there's a big traditional house coming along with, a woman-led company. And when they started out, when Source Books started, they couldn't get funding. So this kind of reminds me of back in the day, I worked in banking in the 80s when mergers were happening in banking and those smaller banks were getting gobbled up by the big ones. Anytime that happens, although they only had 45% there, the big company is going to try to dominate and make everything happen the way they want it, and everyone must conform, which is a very old school way to do things. And I imagine that's probably some of what happened over there. So you've got that clash, and I guess it's the age-old question. The big company wanted to part of the little one because the little one was successful, right? Mm-hmm. So then they come in and try to change the company that was successful. So I could see a lot of head-butting maybe going on there. I'm not quite sure what the answer is to that, but that's what I pulled in from.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like what your takeaway was, like what your thoughts are on the gatekeeping, and like AC is like burned down the gates. So, which I kind of agree, like there shouldn't be gatekeeping when it comes to the women seeking to get published. Like everyone should look at the manuscripts with equal eyes. I don't know, like whether it's male or female, regardless of the race, whatever, like give the manuscript the same kind of care and focus that you would any other, right?
A merger should be a merger. What's the definition for merger? They should be together, and whether you've got a high percentage or not, you shouldn't be telling the other smaller party what to do, especially when they're a successful business. You should be looking at how they got their success and learning from that little company.
Yeah, being in my day job is in a big insurance company, and we've done mergers and acquisitions and things like that and gone through that. And the best thing is to look at the best of breed. And we should be doing that as publishers too. So it's not, yes, somebody has a definite management strategy and management thought, but if they're a true leader versus a manager, they'll take into consideration what works. versus what they want because it's best for the company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of companies like that don't think about, they think about what's best for their bottom line, about best for their sales and stuff, but they don't think about what's best for their employees, what's best for the other shareholders, people that are in the, people that you've merged with. What's better for the little company that started, especially if they're successful. And as a publishing company, what's best for the readers? Reader experience doesn't get as much as it should. If you're, I'm kind of the mentality that anything that I'm going to put out there is going to be the very best that it can be for all involved. It's going to be good for my authors. It's going to be good for readers. I want a quality product because just from a marketing standpoint, a quality product is going to get you more sales. It's going to be get you more of a good reputation. And so just putting your best out there at all times is so much more rewarding than trying to backhand things and take shortcuts and to not collaborate for something that is worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree.
In acquisitions, and I'm a slush pile reader for Allegory Zine, I don't look at who wrote it. From that standpoint, whether it's a male or female, you got to capture the attention of the reader. And as you said, it's got to be the best quality, for the reader that you can deliver.
It shouldn't matter who wrote it.
Right.
It should be about the page. Only what's on the page is what matters. That page sells itself. All the marketing in the world won't sell a book that doesn't have it on the page. And that's what the reader's looking for with their reader experience. So it shouldn't matter who wrote it, what their name is, where they come from. None of that should matter. Only what's on the page should matter.
Agreed.
Yeah, because I don't know, this kind of makes me think of like some of the memes that are out there about just people stepping on others to get where they want to go. And we have to like fight tooth and nail sometimes to achieve our goals, and we shouldn't have to. So the next one I have, let me make sure I have this lined up with my question here. I tried to make them organized. I feel women thrive in women-centric spaces. Patricia, or I may have butchered that name, says, I've seen that in our She Writes press retreats, for example. There's just an amplifying of each other's voices that you don't see among male authors. Our authors feel more comfortable sharing their stories and vulnerabilities with each other, not just as it involves their books, but also as it involves best practices in the publishing process. So with reading that, like, is it true that we amplify each other's voices? Is that maybe why, as women, we tend to be drawn to other women for all of our like marketing, our editing, and everything? Do you think that's part of that?
I think for specifically editing, we have to click with our editor. Because if we don't, there isn't that trust that has to be there with your editor. You need to feel comfortable to go back and forth. And I don't know. I mean, I used to have an author who used to call me when he got my edits and go over them, because sometimes he didn't agree, and we discussed it, talked it out, and sometimes he gave, sometimes I gave, but without that trust, it doesn't work.
I agree.
And so I think we're more trustworthy.
You're saying that we trust women more than we would the male editors. It's not about trust. I think it's about the friendship between the two, that we'll gel better with other ladies than we would with gentlemen.
That's probably true. I mean,
I think it kind of comes down because we have the same lived experience. Also, as another woman, we know what other women go through on the daily, and it helps us better relate to them than, say, someone who is completely has a completely different life experience than us. And even in the not just regular life and in this industry, it is easier for a man to do some of the things that we have been barred from and that we have to fight to get equality in.
Mhm.
So I really think that has a big factor in it.
Yeah.
I don't think my books would be as popular and as polished and as good as they are if I had a male editor, because my female editor, like you said, knows me, knows my way of writing, my styling, but also knows how I would think being female.
Mhm.
I just can't imagine having a guy reading through my manuscript and giving me all these red uh, marks and saying these comments and all that, because I don't know. No, I couldn't. I don't think I can't imagine it. Sorry, guys.
You're good.
But when I'm writing a male character, I do seek out male point of view, though. Did I nail that, or did I, infuse my female point of view into it? So yes, I mean, you have to at least get beta readers of different genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's actually, that's probably a good thing to do like that, because a lot of the male characters I write, I tend not to put a whole lot of depth into them because my main character is the female.
Mhm.
But that kind of like, I do have to like pester, like I pester my husband for the male plot
Mhm.
part on a lot of stuff.
I mean,
I'm taking
this
like,
whole series is male point of view.
oh, yeah.
So that was, I had to get, as you said, your husband,
Yeah.
your male friends and things like that, and say, did I hit it right? And yes, sometimes I had to change things because I was like,
I
they wouldn't have thought
agree.
that way.
I have to do that too because I do things like, gunfight scenes, and
Mhm.
I've got special forces guys, and I've got, so I have to have, well, I have an advisor who's an actual SEAL vet. So I need him to
Mhm.
look things over and tell me, would the SEAL do this? Yes,
Mhm.
no. I would not get that from anyone else. So I think it depends upon what you're writing.
Mhm.
And a lot of people assume because I'm writing romance, everything is all female, female, but
Mm-mm.
men bring a point of view to the table that we don't have. And so if I'm writing main characters, which I am, a man and a woman, I need both to kind of look it over to let me know if I'm bringing their side to it correctly.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyone have any more thoughts to add on that? Alrighty, let's move on to the next question. I have another little quote for this one. This is kind of like, I know I put a lot of work into these. I was really excited about this article. Strive Bookstore came in in 2022 in a space called the Sista Co-op. Next to boutiques, they sell candles and gifts, clothing, and greeting cards. People come in and they get happy. It's beautiful, says Terrace, who adds that women-owned businesses like her publishing company have more of a community caring vibe. It feels like we're a family learning and growing together. Do you guys think because we are women and publishing as women that we have more of a caring family vibe? Is that just like something people put on us because of our gender?
No, I think it's a shame that men can't take some tips there from that quote. It'd be nice if we saw that in a male being in the male's boutique and him doing candles and everything. No, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
No, people being a community and caring and bringing their cakes and muffins for everyone to try. That wouldn't happen. Hugs and how are you? And no, I don't think that would happen like that. And it's unfortunate. So yeah, men take note.
We
I
are
don't
more
think men are
nurturing.
encouraged to be that way. I think it's a cultural, societal thing that men are not encouraged to be that way. I've met male nurses who are very caring individuals, just as caring as a female nurse would be. And I think if we're going to be diverse in our books and anything else, then we need to change that a little bit because it's a not the best thing to say all women this or all men that in any direction. There's always going to be people that are a little bit different than that. And so, that's the age-old question: is it the biological, or is it the nurturing culture that you were raised in that teaches you these things? And I think if we're going to have the wide open doors in publishing, which we should, then we need to also change our ideas of what women do, what men do, and get away from the all men this and all women that.
Nice.
Very well.
I agree.
Well said.
Yeah, because we do need to embrace everybody. Like there is no gender specific job, basically.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, male nurses, they're just as caring as the female counterparts. And I guess that's kind of takes me back to one of the questions earlier, and mentioned that the author mentioned that she publishes and has an opportunity to change the culture around her and those who read her book. Do you feel like, as an author yourself, do you accomplish that with some of the stuff you put out there?
No, mine's really typical male stereotype characters, and I'm sorry I hold my hand up for that, but yeah, mine are the baddies in my books, and males are.
I feel like I really try to do this. I try to present men and women in non-traditional roles, and try to get the point across that we're all human beings, and everybody has a different lived experience, and it's okay to not conform to how society wants you to not spout toxic masculinity, and not to fit into the little box that they want you to fit in. And I hope that I can convey that with my characters, and I certainly try to convey that. I can't talk today. To convey that with my social media, and with the way that I present myself to the public as an author and a person.
I don't think I write stereotypical characters for the most part. No, my women are very strong, and my men are very strong too. So they clash a lot.
Of course,
But
women are strong.
yeah, exactly. But the stereotype that the woman's better in the kitchen. No. In my books, the man is, because my husband is much more creative in the kitchen than I am. I burn things, so my characters burn things.
I have to agree with that. My husband is a much better cook than I am, and
Yeah.
he doesn't cook often, but
Exactly. So and I try to. I guess I don't consciously do it, but there's the give and take in the marriages. There's a give and take in my family that I've seen. So I'm more inclined to be more generic instead of stereotypical.
yeah.
I think you can bring a fuller character. I think you can bring a fuller character to your male or female characters if you have them be more than just that stereotype. I mean, I am writing SEALs, yes, but I mean, I'm writing SEALs and also showing them with their children, this big, tough alpha guy who is a great dad, and,
alpha guy who's mushy inside.
Exactly. And, my husband's a better cook than I am, much more creative. But if I could show the male character as being the SEAL and also a good cook, then my reader's going to say, oh yeah, that's a hero, right? Because he can do all the things. So, but as far as making them more lifelike, the more we show of those things they can do outside of that stereotype, the more lifelike they become.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a male character and you don't have him caring, I mean, how is the reader going to relate or like that character? If he's the love interest of your main character, he's got to be likable. So he's got to have that caring nature. And you're all saying that your husband's a better cook, my husband's a better housewife. Cool.
Yeah, same here.
I wish I could say that, but he does get in the cleaning moods. Like, doesn't actually, like, goes above and beyond. And I'm like, how did you? But then I'm like, okay, I distracted the child when you were able to do that. So
Yes.
that makes a difference. Your energy levels are different. But the stereotypical stuff, like you mentioned, like it's okay to write them as a stereotypical like male, but like add the like what Deborah mentioned, the softer side, that caring side, because it does make them more realistic. And it does, I feel like it'll pull the reader in more, showing that side of the male or showing the tougher side of the female. Like my main female characters are badass and like they'll kick butt and put the men on their ass in a heartbeat, just like snap your fingers. And a lot of women, they look for those because they don't have a way to embrace that part of themselves, I feel like. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that real quick?
Right.
Let's take a pause break, guys. We're going to look at this week's Indie Connection with these fascinating books.
Hey guys, C.O. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Colleen Hoover and It Ends With Us. The first book I have for you is called A Place Without You by Jewel E. Ann. She is his student. Sometimes fate is forbidden. Everything feels temporary when you've experienced tragedy. Until Hannah Lane meets Bodhi at a music festival. Young and spontaneous, they have a lust for seizing the moment, falling hard and fast. When Bodhi is forced to leave without a goodbye, Hannah thinks she'll never get over him. But then she meets Mr. Malone, her sexy new guidance counselor. They are reckless. They are forbidden. Hannah has to choose between finishing school, banned from seeing Mr. Malone, or dropping out to follow her nomad dreams. Hannah chooses her dreams. Life is not a destination or a journey. Some things are more than temporary. Forbidden can never be ignored. But if she returns for him, will he still be hers? The second book I have for you is called It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time by Kylie Scott. Returning home from her father's wedding was never going to be easy for Adele. If being sent away at 18 hadn't been bad enough, the mess she left behind when she made a pass at her dad's business partner sure was. 15 years older than her, Pete had been her crush for as long as she could remember. But she'd misread the situation, confusing friendliness for undying love. Awkward. Add her father to the misunderstanding, and Pete was left with a broken nose and a business on the edge of ruin. The man had to be just as glad as everyone else when she left town. 7 years later, things are different. Adele is no longer a kid, but a fully grown adult more than capable of getting through a wedding and being polite. But all it takes is seeing him again to bring back those old feelings. Sometimes first loves are the truest. The third book I have for you is called Assumed by M.H.R. Greer. When her friend Sandy asks for help, Ann Wilson leaves her small, lonely life in Miami for the picturesque island of St. Martin. But as soon as she arrives, Sandy is murdered, and her death exposes lies. An alias, a secret past, stolen money. Suspected of murder and trapped on the island, Anne is shocked when a cryptic message arrives. Find the money, take it, and run. She follows Sandy's trail of obscure clues, desperate for proof of her innocence, and must decide if she can trust the two men who offer help. The dark, mysterious Brit, or the American with a wide grin in a pickup truck. When memories resurface, dark truths she'd rather leave buried and forgotten, her past becomes intertwined with her present. Her only way forward is to face her own secrets. And the last book I have for you is called All My Nevers by Diana Nixon. Not all fairy tales are bathed in magic. Some are dipped in tears, grief, and blood. And mine? It was submerged in all of the above. 3 years ago, leaving San Fernando felt like the best way out of the mess I was neck deep in. An addict to all things forbidden, I betrayed everyone I loved and watched my little sister pay for my sins with her life. An escape felt like a blessing, so I ran away and let the ashes of my past drift behind me. That is why returning to my hometown was never on the menu. Nor was falling in love with my childhood friend, whose heart had been irreparably broken by yours truly. But my father's death turned out to be a twist I wasn't expecting, and I had no choice but to come back home, face my demons, and head the family and what was left of my father's business. My new life was hell on earth. Everyone hated me, and I loved the only girl I knew would never be mine. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on Indie Connection. Bye.
Holy cow. Every time I watch one of those Indie Connections, I always find more books to add to my TBR. So, guys, we were chatting about the characters, and Karina broke the fourth wall to say, see, we live with non-stereotype partners, so why can't characters in fiction be like that? That's realism, and that's true. I mean, you want to have a realistic character, and I mean, it's a dream to have like a partner that's not the stereotypical, or at least I'd say, because then they help out more with things, kind of most often, hopefully, take away the stress. Well,
We lost that.
so, moving forward, do you feel, because I know we've all kind of been in leadership roles, we've all tried to move forward or up the corporate ladder in different situations. Do you feel women are questioned more as leaders and given less support than men when trying to advance?
I work for myself, so no one gets to tell me what to do or belittle me. I have just as many male clients as I do female.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have that problem.
Anybody else? Which, Deborah, we're talking about, do you feel women are questioned more as leaders and given less support than men when trying to move up the corporate ladder or move forward in like the author business? Kind of goes back to the gatekeeping thing, I guess.
Yes. Well, I'm going to think back again to my experience in banking because I relate to that as far as publishing. So in banking, like in publishing, all of the most of the jobs, teller or, I was a commercial loan account rep, a lot of different things like that. The females had those jobs for the most part, and you could only rise to a certain point. You could manage a bank branch, maybe. But beyond that, you would not go. Everybody above that was all male. So I think of it as, those are the big money men. Same way with publishing. So a lot of editors, female. You might see a male who is an executive editor with females working under him. But publishers were all male, and they couldn't get the financing to, the female source books when they started out couldn't get financing. A lot of these companies that started up, they had to finance themselves, which was a huge hurdle for any woman that wanted to have a publishing house. So yes, that very much matches my experiences in banking. And so all of the things that went with that, some condensation, some attitudes about what women couldn't do, a good old boy network, all that. In some places still exists today. In other places, it does not. So I think it just depends on what company you're looking at. Women have many more opportunities today than they did before, which is good. But the bottom line in starting any company is you've got to have the financing, else you can't do it.
It's true. The good old boy system is something we have a lot of it here in my area of the country, Oklahoma, Texas kind of area. And I grew up with a lot of it. Like if you weren't related to so-and-so or like from this area of this part of the county, like you couldn't do this. They didn't even give you a chance to like, I'm going to use like my FFA stuff as office positions for that. Like you had to work even harder to attain a position in that. And it's just, not a fan of the good old system. I feel like I've rebelled against it my entire life because I'm like, I shouldn't have to work this much harder to achieve what average Joe over here is doing. Sorry, Joe. Not like actually referring to you. That was just like average Joe is okay. Sorry, I'm not gonna y'all get it.
Yeah. I mean, at my office, oh yeah. I mean, I was a project manager at one time, and I was fairly aggressive with the CEO because he wanted me to move a date up, and I asked him if he was going to give me the people to do it, even though this time of year was worse for his staff. And he said yes, and I said, "Are you sure?" I pushed him, and he was fine with it. It was the new technology officer that was like, "No, nope, 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 we're not having that." So I'm back to being a business analyst, and I kind of like it much better because I don't have to deal with that political crap. But I got the resources I needed to get the data in, and I brought that project in before time and under budget, but that didn't matter. The new guy just saw me being aggressive with somebody who I had known for years. So
Man.
And I got my hand slapped. I don't think anybody else would have if it was a man in the same position saying, "Are you sure you're going to give me the resources because this is your busiest time of year?"
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can bring the data in for you.
And even at times, do you feel like maybe sometimes we're pushed like beyond our limits because as women, we can kind of handle it, so to speak, but we don't exactly handle it well.
We learn to rant in private very well, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And characters die in our books because of that.
That is so true, because that is a great way to channel all that frustration and anger. I can't say I didn't put several scenes like that in the book that's sitting with my editor right now. So.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And that kind of, I've got another quote from the thing. Sarah Grant Streamland books will build on people underestimating an entire population of women. It is not a big deal if you go to any working class neighborhood to see women as business owners. Grant says, no one thinks it's a big deal if a woman owns a beauty salon or a grocery store. I've reached the upper echelons of media where they talk a good game about being cool with women in business ownership, but the reality is entirely different. And I feel like that kind of touches on like the fact that we truly are underestimated when it comes to us running a business as our own.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have anything, like have you had any experiences where you felt like somebody underestimated your abilities?
Yeah, I had a potential client look at my testimonials and he said, I don't believe them. They're not real. You made them up. And I said, okay, well, you can go and contact every one of those authors and speak with them because they are true. And that was nice for me, yeah. You don't believe they're true because they're so good. Brilliant. But it was also like, you're not capable of doing that sort of thing. So, yeah, that was a bit of a downgrade.
Don't you hate that mentality? It gets on my nerves so much. I hate it.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Sorry.
You're good. I was going to say, even when you have those testimonies up, like they ask for testimonies, but then to turn around and question the testimonies, you're like, what do you want from me? Like, what?
I am that good. Just believe what they say, Women can be good at that job, Women can do that.
Yes. And it's so, I hate being underestimated. And I feel like it gives me almost like firepower to just like, oh,
Yeah, to pounce down the naysayers. Yes, it kind of gives us a little bit more fire to get it done and get it done right and on time and hit our dates and get things out the door.
Which, like, Karina shared her story about the time she was underestimated. Do you guys have anything like that comes to mind with that? Any examples where you proved them wrong?
I've had several conversations with men who want me to help them. Why is my series not selling? Why is this book not successful? And I would be like, well, let's look and see what you've got. And I'll be like, well, this blurb needs to be more compelling. You need to have a hook in your blurb. It can't be this huge line of text. It needs to be formatted in a way that catches a reader's eye, because you've only got so long to capture someone's attention. Your cover is not conveying the right sort of genre. So I give them all these free, usually it's free advice. If someone comes to me and messages me, I usually give them free advice if they're looking for it. I don't go on other people's posts and say, oh, this is what you need to do. But if someone asks me for advice, I give it to them. And it happens quite often. And when males come to my inbox, they are much less likely to take anything that I say into account. They're more likely to argue with me about why their stuff is the best ever. And they have this God complex where they can do no wrong. And women are much more likely to take the feedback that I give them and to implement changes and to do testing and to get better sales, because they're taking my advice and they'll come back to me, this really worked for me. What else can you help me with? And it's not, they're not condescending. I mean, there's some people, well, I don't want to change my cover. That's fine. But maybe we could work on this blurb, and they will take some sort of constructive criticism. And men just, not all men, again, there's awesome people like Joe, but most men that come to my inbox will be like, no, I'm just the best. And you'll just see how awesome I'm going to be. I'm just going to be blowing away. I'm just going to blow away sales. You couldn't possibly be as good as everyone says you are if this is the only advice you have for me. So those people are just like, okay, if you want advice from me ever again, I guess there's the door. I'm not going to spend any more time on you.
Exactly. I had something the opposite of that.
Love you, Joe.
Joe speaks to men. We're dumb creatures, Courtney. That's the only explanation, at least a logical one anyway.
I have 2 clients who are really high up in the food chain when it comes to podcasting and books. And I gave them my advice on covers and blurbs and marketing advice, and they listened. They never once questioned me. I did my job for them. They were very, very happy. We parted, and they've hired me again. So, some guys do listen and appreciate the work we give them, because a lot of it isn't, like Courtney says, a lot of it isn't paid. It's advice that we give them free, because we want them to learn from us. A men trying to learn from a woman.
And Joe says, anybody who doesn't listen to anyone here is a moron.
Oh.
They don't deserve it. Thank you, Joe. That was very kind of you. Deborah, Jane, do y'all have anything to add to that? Like any experiences?
Well, it hasn't really happened in the book world, but I used to sell travel, and I'll say both men and women have done this. You give them advice, which you think they come to you because you're the one who's got some training in it or a little bit of expertise, or maybe been to the place, and you give them their advice, and they decide you're wrong, and then they go on and have a horrible trip because they don't listen to you, at which point, it's really not your fault that they didn't listen. Some people just won't take advice. They think they know everything. And for those people, I just have to say, have a nice day. Maybe you don't want every client,
Yeah, that's the nice way to tell them to kick rocks.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
I guess I'm lucky. In the last few years, I'm sort of one of the experts at the job, so people listen. It's like when I inject my opinion, they listen, which is quite nice. So I haven't had that that behavior in a long time. I don't know if it's age and experience and just the fact that I'm open to different viewpoints. And in the writing world, I'm sort of off on my own, with my podcast with Katie. just, I go to I go to the beat of a different drum, I guess.
Sometimes that's easier because you just
Mhm.
kind of like stay in your own little world. They stay over there, and it's just
Mhm.
life is better that way sometimes.
Or I just am oblivious to it,
Yeah.
or I've just chosen, like, it's not worth my time to get upset. I think as you get older, you get less and less patient with stupidity, and you sort of, cull it from your life. That's the only way I can.
Yeah. And it
Mhm.
helps to do that. Just get rid of it. Don't put
Mhm.
energy into it. Save it for the things that need your energy.
Right, exactly.
Well, guys, y'all have anything to add? Find any final comments about this topic before we go around and tell everybody more about where to find you?
I think it's wonderful that women have more opportunities in publishing than they did before, and that we can own our own publishing houses. And so many of us have gotten rights back to our books and done just that. And they're having success. And that's a wonderful thing. And it would be nice if we could see the day where it didn't matter if you were male or female to do any job on the planet. Maybe we'll get there someday. We're making progress. So I'm glad of that.
We love men. Yeah. That's my last. We love all the men, service providers, authors, publishers. We love you. We really appreciate you. So this was just a little discussion.
Yeah.
It's important to have these discussions, though, openly, so that men can see, what maybe they could do to support us better, and how they can communicate with us, how we can support them better, and we can work together in a more collaborative way. As far as publishing and women in publishing, I think it's great that we're getting to do this more, especially with self-publishing coming in and us owning our own companies. But I also think it's really important, and I think it's something that women have really concentrated on, especially in the last few years, is diversifying also, not just with other women, but publishing people of color, publishing the people that are non-binary, people that are trans, just reaching out and not being so discriminative and telling everyone's story and not just ones from our own experience. So that's something that I think is really important. I think it's something that we've seen a lot more, especially with women publishers. And I think they talked about it a little bit in the article. I think it's important.
It is. It's so important. We are the game changers, guys. Oh, quit hitting my computer. All right, guys. Well, let's go around and tell our viewers where they can find you and a little bit about your work. We're going to start with you, Deborah.
All right. You can find me at deborahparmley.com. You can also find my travel blog. I live in a motorhome, and we travel the U.S., and I write in there, which is Beautiful Day Traveler, and that will be in my links.
Sweet. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
Miss Jane.
Hello, you can find me at www.jetaylor75.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of the other places, and all of those links are on my website.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Karina.
Hi, Linktree. You'll find all my links for my socials and all links for my books, including Broken Chains. If you love dark mafia romance, read it. You will love it. And also check out my podcast. Deborah was a guest. She was amazing.
Yes.
Behind the Pen. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple, and all other platforms. So it was great being here, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. All right, guys. So today we're going to be spending the final 5 minutes with Miss C.L. Cannon. But before we get there, let me tell you a little bit about myself. You can find all of my stuff. Oh my gosh. Wow, I'm so off. At my website, thechaptergoddess.com. One of the latest releases I've got that's out is Spice and Steam. This is a collection of stories with mine in it as well. It is available for 99 cents ebook on Amazon and Wide. So make sure you guys grab it because it will not stay there like that for very long. Yeah, and I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I have slowly been taking myself and narrowing down my social media stuff. And this is Go Indie Now. So while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Oh, I'm getting tongue-tied today. But now we are switching gears and we are going to hear from Miss C.L. Cannon as she shares with us a little bit about her latest release.
Hey guys, first I guess I'm going to tell you where you can find me. You can find me, if I'm not good at this either, link.bio for CL Cannon or clcannon.net. I am on all social media except for Snapchat. I spend a lot of time on TikTok that I should probably use for writing. I've tried to get a little bit more on Instagram lately, and I used to be very religiously on Instagram all the time, and then I don't know, TikTok happened and I've abandoned it. So I'm trying to give equal time to both of them now. But today I would like to talk to you about our newest anthology with Fiction Atlas Press. It is a villains anthology called Once Upon a Wicked Heart. Here's a little graphic I printed off. We have 12 authors in this collection, including me. And all of the stories they're very dark stories. Just if you're squeamish, you might not want to read it. We've got a trigger warning in the front of the book. But they are very dark retellings of fairy tales and myths. So I'm going to read a little bit about what kind of stories we have in here. We have a fairy queen with a score to settle, a jilted goddess who starts a bloody war, a heart of ice that will either thaw or shatter, a cursed maiden who finds her worth in her affliction, a serial killer who might have just met her match, a nymph who seems to have found true love at last, a mechanical heart that could be a young woman's undoing, a sister who seeks vengeance against those who wronged her, a betrayed witch who vows retribution for the slights against her, a sea witch who learns that love cannot be so easily manipulated, a mistreated queen who takes her rightful place, no matter what the cost, and a god that takes back what was stolen from him in a gruesome fashion. There are so many wonderful authors in this collection. It is on sale for 99 cents right now until November 29th, right after Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It will go up to $2.99. So if you want it for 99 cents, you can get it right now at Books to Read / Once Upon a Wicked Heart. I don't know exactly what else to say. I'm just so proud of it. It's one of our best selling anthologies so far. We've had lots of great reviews. Like I said, lots of the stories are dark, but they're just so good. We have a lot that have some really fun rhyme schemes in them. We have retellings of the Apple of Discord. There's ones about the sea witch from The Little Mermaid. There's some Russian folklore in there. There's a bunch of really, really fascinating stories that I really hope that you will take the time to check out. And I also hope that you will smash the like button and remember that it's always time to go indie now.